AM 650 KGAB Radio. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. So we got some coming up in, the next year here, 2018. A lot of different people running for a lot of different offices, and that includes City Council. So sitting with me right now is Joe Shogrin, who is running for my ward. You're over in my neighborhood. So
I'm in your neighborhood.
What number is that?
Ward 3.
Ward 3 then includes the Sun Valley area.
Sun Valley, basically Logan and east up to Saddle Ridge and between I-80 and Del Range.
Okay. Now, that's a pretty good area. There's some really nice neighborhoods in there.
Yeah.
Is there anything that made you decide, well, that's it, I got to get on the city council. This is broken, I got to fix it?
Well, honestly, I've always wanted to help the community. I've always wanted to serve the community. So this is a great opportunity to do so. It wasn't really an aha moment.
Okay.
It was just wanting to always do this for my whole life.
Okay. So then what was the tipping point to decide that now's the time?
I looked at my kids.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I'm looking at the future. I want them to be here. I want them to have a spot in Cheyenne in the future. So we did a good job 2 years ago electing some good officials for the city council. I'd like to continue the trend.
Are you going to be running against someone who's currently holding that seat that you want them to lose their job?
No.
Okay.
Richard Johnson, from what I understand, has stepped down.
Right.
Or is stepping down.
So that leaves that seat open since Richard Johnson is stepping down. You can go ahead and step into. Has anyone else announced that they're going to be running for that as well, or is it just you right now?
From what I understand, we have Georgia Broyles and Gabe Pena.
Okay. Now, this is where you got to make the case as to why you, not them. Why you, not them?
I will listen to you.
Okay.
I mean, one thing as a public official, you have to listen to your voters.
Right.
You have to listen to the people you represent. I believe positivity is a very good thing in government.
Okay.
If you go negative, you're going to have a lot of issues.
Okay.
You know, how are you supposed to recruit people to come here if you say, oh, Cheyenne, just a windhole?
Right.
I mean, you have to have a positive outlook on everything.
Okay.
Especially the place you live.
So now, are there certain problems for the city of Cheyenne that you think need to be addressing? Because if I were going to run, I would have a list of the following needs to be fixed, and I want to work on this.
Oh, there's a giant list. Let's start off with future economics. You know, we have to start recruiting businesses to come here that actually pay a really decent wage to keep up with their housing. I mean, one thing that we don't have is we have 1 million jobs that pay $10 an hour. We need more jobs that pay $30+ an hour for our citizens to keep them here, to keep them happy, to keep them till they're not bankrupt and, starving for food.
Okay. So if it's the city's job to recruit businesses like that, then what does the city of Cheyenne do to bring in businesses like this with what carrot and stick?
I mean, we got carrots out the wazoo.
Okay.
First of all, we live in a state with no corporate taxes. That's amazing. We live in a beautiful place, great people. We got a great workforce. I mean, what else could you possibly wave in front of their face? Oh, and I mean, have I mentioned the people? The people is everything about Cheyenne.
Okay.
The people is the reason why I'm in Cheyenne.
Right. Let's talk for a minute some infrastructure, because we've been working for a while and fixing roads, which can be expensive. And to me, that's one of the top priorities of the city. Before you start spending money on all sorts of other things, infrastructure's got to be a key component. So do you have a different tack that you would like to use, or how do you see approaching the crumbling roads?
You know, the crumbling roads have always been an issue. I don't have an excellent answer for that, to be honest. It's a problem beyond my skill set. I'm not a road person. I don't know everything about roads, but I'd say get out there and get after it. You know, when you delegate money away from the problems at hand and put them into other issues, you're letting the problems at hand just slip away, and unfortunately our roads are crumbling.
Yeah. Do you see areas that the city is spending money where a city should not be spending money?
I would say there's a few areas, but in all honesty, the spending the money needs to happen if it's a need.
Okay.
But
what is a need? How do you consider? What would you consider a need that a city has to spend money on? But that, and then we have to take a look at what is something that the city should not be spending money on.
Well, I mean, for example, the city needs to be spending money on their infrastructure, their parks, their, what the city maintains and is over. They don't need to be going out and spending money on something the state will take care of. Part of our roads, all our highways are state. And those are actually inside the city. Those, Lincoln Way, coming up from 85, those are state roads.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
talking with Joe Shogrin, who's running for city council, wants the seat that's being vacated by Richard Johnson. And when talking to Richard Johnson about why aren't you running again, he said, I just decided to term limit myself. So he's just not going to be in there, he said. So you're going to be, you're one of those who want to step into, and again, what's the district?
Ward 3.
Which covers what area?
From Logan east to Saddle Ridge, in between Delrange and I-80.
Okay. So in stepping into this position, again, I'm looking at what you consider to be the proper role of government and not. Mm-hmm. So let's take something like some people in town would love to see a rec center, whether it's run by the county or run by the city. Is that a role of government?
That is a role of government only if the citizens voted in. Mm. The city should not go out today and say, we're going to do a rec center, unless the voters actually go through and vote for it, and then it's like a self-imposed tax. Mm. I do like the idea of a rec center, but I'm not going to, impose on someone without their, authorization or a popular vote for it.
In the studio with me is Joe Shogrin, who's running for, again, it's District what, which covers what area?
Ward 3, which covers in between I-80 to Delrange, Logan East to Saddle Ridge.
And he's running for city council in Ward 3. Let's go to the phones. And if you have any questions for him, 632-6500 or 888-503-6500. This is Glenn, who's on the phone.
Hey, Eric here.
Yes,
good morning,
sir.
Glenn.
Morning.
Good morning to your guest. I believe his name is Joe. I didn't get the last name.
Shogrin.
All right. Good morning, Joe. Anyway, as far as the rec center goes, I don't want to pay any more taxes for something that people may even vote and win on for the fourth time, maybe. It went down 3 times already. And if people want a rec center, let it be privately built. Because we have a YMCA, which a lot of people use. And what they propose in a rec center would cost membership more than you would pay in a Y. But here's the thing. We are being taxed all the time. Someone always wants something. And people can't afford it. A lot of people live on a fixed income, and yet they keep on wanting to tax us. Now, we pay enough in property tax, and a lot of that goes to the schools. And the thing is that what's coming out of the schools is not worth my tax-paying dollars as far as education goes.
Okay.
So, back to the rec center. People want it, do it privately.
Okay, do it privately, enough spending, in other words.
And, there's actually been some push among some of my friends to actually start a rec center privately. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea. I mean, why should the city be on the hook for another ice and event center?
Right.
I mean, that thing is, I enjoy going down there, but whenever I go down there, like last weekend I tried bringing my whole family down to play laser tag, and they're like, we have 3 vests going, so it was kind of like, 3 of us playing and faking it.
Right.
It's kind of unfortunate, but why would we want to stick the city on the hook for that without, a vote? But I agree with that, and I do agree with privatizing as much as you can. It's not the government's role to keep everyone entertained. And that's one reason why this weekend I actually started a series of focus groups. With the focus groups, we discussed youth. We discussed adult. I mean, what the adults and what the youth need to feel fulfilled, enjoyment of life, quality of life. And it's not a government's responsibility to add that. And there's a lot of trends that we've started seeing in between all the different groups we had. And one group was community. I mean, one major trend was community and keeping everyone fluent, keeping everyone connected. And now how do you do that in the age of social media? I mean, it's hard because you don't get out there and walk. You don't get out there and talk to your neighbors. Does everyone on this radio show know their neighbors? That's kind of where we're going with that.
How do you put together a focus group in Cheyenne or in the ward you want to run for?
I put it together in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
And simply I put it on Facebook. I mean, again, the social media. That's how many of us communicate. And we had a full group. We had a great group. And then my boss said I could borrow one of our shops to, host it, and we got together on Saturday morning and discussed some issues that Cheyenne faces.
Okay. So now, during the course of the commercial break, you were talking about being a little, foresight for the city, planning things out in advance. And one of the things you mentioned is, okay, city just bought some property that was right by the roundabout, and apparently that issue could have been or should have been settled sooner. So what do you think that the city should be planning ahead for? I mean, take a look at the city of Cheyenne. In the next decade, they should be thinking about planning for what? In 10 years, the city has grown from roughly 50,000 to 60,000. We have to be thinking about where we're going to be population-wise in 10 years. I actually think we're going to probably be around 100,000, and that's going to, in my opinion, a conservative number. So we have to be thinking about bringing in, keep the infrastructure up, bringing in new jobs, bringing in new business and economics, and making sure that we're ready to sustain our growth. Because if we don't, we're dead in the water. I mean, we'll have an unemployment like Detroit has. Who wants to live in Detroit? Right.
I mean, that place is crazy. The only difference is we have guns.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well, we have guns legally. Anyway.
Right. We have guns legally.
Detroit doesn't. All right. What about things like there are those who would like to see high-speed internet brought into Cheyenne, some broadband, things like that. But again, let's go back to, I'm for that too. I would love to see the fiber optics coming through the
right.
But again, I look at what is the role of government in that and what is up to the private sector.
Well, on that, I believe the focus groups right now, sponsored by the city or with the city, are pretty much get a plan down and try and exclude the city from the responsibility of it.
Right.
At the very end, possibly the city may get involved, but they're trying to effort themselves to get away from sponsoring high-speed internet or fiber optic. Fiber optic it'd be awesome. I'd love to see it. But it'd be nice if Charter could pull it up, make it happen.
Okay. But is there a way, so you would like to see it come in through the private sector rather than the city? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Could you imagine a city-ran fiber? I just talked about laser tag.
Yeah.
So what? Now we got 10 fibers and only 3 of them work?
Right.
I'll pass.
Okay. All right. Joe Shogrin is my guest, and he's running for City Council in Ward 3. If you'd like to ask him any questions, 632-6500 or 888-503-6500. Hang on. Off to the phones we go. This is Glenn, who's on the phone with me.
Hey, good morning, Glenn. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Hey, Joe, quick question. First of all, I obviously agree with you. This is Steve, by the way.
Okay.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on the rec center, and for the main reason is the city is not always vested, I should say, in a venture like that, where it needs to be a privately owned. So somebody has something on the line when they leave work every day, when they leave that rec center to go home to their family, they have something at stake. To where the city doesn't always have that. And the rec center is the Icon Center is a good example of that. But I want to ask you, Joe, how can the city not be involved with something as far as the private enterprise like a rec center or bringing businesses to Cheyenne, but how can they still encourage it? Is there a bridge there that can be created without overstepping any lines of the city becoming into private enterprise, but still being able to encourage it? Is there some kind of incentives of a way that we can do without crossing those lines? Does that actually make sense there?
Yeah, it actually does. I believe you kind of hit the nail on the head with the invested. As citizens of Cheyenne, we have to be invested.
Absolutely. How much do you believe in the idea? If you believe in it wholeheartedly like I do, then you're willing to put what you have on the line. That's what I did with my business. I found the location, I believed in it, and I put everything on the line for it.
And how has your investment worked out for you?
It's worked out ridiculously good.
And why is that? Because you were 100% invested, you believed in it, and you went for it.
Absolutely, and that's the only way a business like a rec center will work, in my opinion. But and again, I will be wholeheartedly say we do need one, and it'd be great for our city. But it'll also be instead of being an asset, it could be a liability if it's not handled right.
Absolutely.
So I'll hang up and let you talk.
All right. Thank you very much for calling in. If you'd like to talk to Joe as well. 632-6500 is the phone number. So the mayor has been working on her blight program. In which cases, well, there's I remember watching a house come down a little while ago.
Right.
So there's some places that apparently are run down and considered blighted, and then, of course, we'd want to bring in something to fill that spot. Do you have an opinion on her program?
Like anyone else in Cheyenne, I love a clean community.
Okay.
But I also believe you also have property rights and other issues you have to work with. You know, it's not the city's job to intervene and take someone's property rights or, you know, step on their toes. You know, I do support the fight the blight to a point, but not in the extent of overreaching into someone's rights.
Okay. Now, if we've had a piece of property that, again, there's junk in the yard, nobody's been living there, it almost looks like abandoned. Get a hold of the property owner over and over again. Can you do something about this? And they're just not doing anything about it. So do you step in and move on it, or is it just all you can do is encourage the property owner?
You know, there's things you can do. I mean, if it's a condemned building, there's absolutely things you can do because it's unsafe for the community.
Yeah.
I'll take the Z's building, for example. You know, I mean, that thing had a ton of potential 10 years ago, and now it's just a broken down place, and it serves as like our third homeless facility in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
You know, that needs to be addressed. I mean, that needs to be worked with.
Well, in fact, just down here on Lincoln Way, there's an old famous hotel. It used to be the happening place in Cheyenne.
Yep.
So the mayor's worked out a deal. Give us some of that land because they can't obviously tear the whole thing down themselves as payment for tearing the facility down and dealing with the asbestos and so on. So do you think she's making a right move there? Would you have helped her or supported her on that?
You know, in all honesty, at least we're getting something back from the investment of putting into it. I mean, we're getting land. You know, the city does need land. I mean, popular to, you know, some beliefs, or contrary to some beliefs, the city holding land is not a bad thing.
Right.
You know, look at Denver, for example. You go down to Denver, I was down there this weekend. It's crazy. It's a concrete jungle. There's nothing. But if the city actually holds it, in 50 years when this becomes, you know, a Cheyenne version of Denver, we'll actually have a spot to actually grow and actually do something with as a community or as a city.
I'm talking with Joe Shogrin, who's running for Ward 3 here in the city of Cheyenne on your city council. So speaking of downtown, now, there was a time this was the richest downtown in the country.
Yes.
A lot was going on here. Well, of course, the train dumped people off.
Right.
And, of course, Lincoln Way, first highway coast to coast, so people stopped here on the way through. But now the interstates have gone around. The train no longer dumps off people. And then, of course, when the big box stores come in the mall, they, of course, want to go outside of downtown. They need space.
Right.
So there's Del Range. That chokes off downtown. So if it weren't for city, county, state government, the courthouses, the lawyers, and the lobbyists, downtown would be pretty much non-existent. Now, we're not the only city in America that has that problem.
Right.
Cities all across America have that problem. So is there a role for the city to help revitalize downtown, or is that a private sector problem?
I believe that is a private sector problem.
Okay.
I mean, the downtown area had a $10 million gross last year as far as profits from business.
Okay.
So it does show some promise. But as a community down here, we have to keep that in focus that it's a community. It's not the city.
Right.
It's a community. You know, I support the DDA, but I don't believe the city should be dumping a whole ton of money into it.
Okay.
You know, it's not the project of it's not the city's role in this society to keep an area self-sufficient.
Okay.
I do love coming down here. I love the lights the DDA has put up. I mean, they're beautiful. Actually posted.
Especially when it snows.
Oh, my
And I drive
gosh.
3 o'clock in the morning, and it's just snowed, and those lights are on.
Yeah.
That looks amazing. Okay.
Beautiful.
Well, there's even the idea. Richard Johnson came in here to talk about this. They want to put in a nice little, what do you call that?
Splash park.
The splash park down
Yes.
there. Which sounds like a lot of fun. And my thought was, well, as long as they're raising money to build a splash park,
Right.
that's fine. But there are some who would like to see, well, a little bit of investment from the city, too, if they come short on raising the money. And your thought is?
I mean, as long as there's an invested interest in it, and it's going to be privately ran to where the city's not on the hook forever.
Okay.
Like the Ice and Event Center, to where we're actually staffing something and keeping the lights on, paying that $10,000 electric bill at the end of the month, even if we only, serve 50 people. The splash park, I believe, I mean, as long as it has an invested interest, if the city has to contribute a little bit, I understand that. You know, it's
Right.
part of growth for the city. It's part of building the city out. It's part of giving the youth something to do, but it's privately sponsored and privately started, and then the city does help out in a role. As long as the role is not the primary only role, I do agree with it.
Okay. You got a little while until election time.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So have you mapped out your strategy?
Absolutely.
Okay. What are you doing?
I want to listen to the people, so I started focus groups. Anyone's welcome to attend. We're discussing Cheyenne's issues, so I know what they are. And on top of that, we're going to try and turn this into an action group to where we can actually start solving some of the issues that we can without the government's help. You know, it's not the government's responsibility to give us all the thing. I mean, I'm not Bernie Sanders.
Right.
I mean, Bernie Sanders, he'll give you a free lunch, but on your dime.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
None.
Take it from somebody else. So
Not
more
happening.
focus groups. Oh, by the way, you're on. Do you have a website up yet?
I just actually purchased my domain name. It's
Okay.
YOJoe, but I haven't built my website
So you got to
yet.
build a website next. Now, you're on Facebook, I know, because
Absolutely.
you and I follow each other on Facebook. So if you want people to follow you on Facebook or at least ask you some questions, where do they get a hold of you then?
You can look up my name, Joe Shogrin, Shogrin. And you can send me a friend request. I'm pretty open to that. I mean, as long as you're not some kind of weird stalker. And if you are, I'll weed you out.
Yeah.